Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of American Gods, as well as the latest episode of Twin Peaks. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about the American Gods season finale, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Twin Peaks. But the first thing we're going to talk about is this season finale of American Gods. A very, very good season finale. Just so much to talk about. Obviously, you kind of got a little bit of Billy Whit's her storyline from this season because Nasty's telling the story. I think if I remember correctly, his like Orlando Jones's character's name, like his god name is Adonde, if I'm remembering that correctly. It's kind of, he said something that episode that he said this episode, anger get shit done, is essentially kind of his mantra. But essentially he ends up telling her story, and it's kind of a sad story of like, oh, she was a queen, she has the power of all women, of rebirth and creation, but it was kind of all taken from her by men. And she, even throughout the years, she tried to maintain like, oh yeah, I'm a queen, always trying to remember who she was, but then that slowly like slipped away when, you know, men came and took that from her, and it's just like slowly but surely there were points where she even almost forgot she was a queen. But then she got visited by the tech kid. Basically, the new gods gave her an offer like, hey, you feel you're forgotten and everything, right? Well, here, we'll bring you back into the light, essentially, kind of get you back to where you were. So, I mean, to me, I looked at it, I mean, maybe I kind of read too deeply into it. It almost seemed like he was pimping her out. Like, it's like, oh yeah, here, I've said it. Well, basically, he put her on the platform of like, yo, social media and stuff like that, dating sites, so that she can meet people and feed like she normally does. Which apparently that's all about feeding her soul and everything. You got to see it in a mass situation in the past when she was actually, like they all turned into like this black goo. And basically it's all about feeding her soul. As a tech kid was like, yeah, I'm not all about spending the rest of my days, you know, feeding your soul inside that vaginal nebula of yours. So, but it did seem like he's saying like, oh, I'm gonna point you in the right direction, which is like, I figured as much. It was pointed towards most likely Wednesday, but then it's like, maybe not. I don't know. Like, I mean, well, it does seem like it, but maybe she just didn't get to Wisconsin in time or whatnot. I mean, it looks like she's heading that direction at the end of the episode. I know I'm skipping ahead like that, but I apologize. It's just like, I'm very curious. Is like, because I mean, as we already know, like that's what this is all about. Gods who had been forgotten versus gods who are trying to reinvent situation. Like basically they're the ones that kind of run things and decide like, oh, these prayers get sent this way, people believe this, they hear that, like, oh, don't hear this, hear what this. That's kind of like Wednesday's whole situation. Also kind of going back a little bit, I like that whole conversation of when Nasty's like, so do you know what the moral of the, you know, Billy Quist's story is, a story about this queen and everything. He's like, do you know what the moral of the story is? And Shadow's like, yeah, don't compromise your morals for anything. And then Nasty's like, what? Fuck no, what are you talking about, you idiot? You can't go through life without compromising anything. It's a part of life. He's like, no, the moral of the story is you need to get you a queen. It's kind of what those, I just love that. Just kind of like, what? You're thinking this some after school special? Oh, don't compromise yourself, you idiot. Like, that was just kind of like the way he kind of presented it like that. Just, I like that. Also, another story element that came up, I was like wondering about it, like the whole like, oh, how is like the whole Vulcan murder situation? It's like, you know, where does Wednesday fall on that line? Because the fact is, Nasty knew that he did it, so I was like, oh, so he didn't bother covering up. It's like, oh, I'm so sure that he covered it. It's like, no, because he's explaining it to Astara later on, and it's like, oh man, yeah, oh, they killed Vulcan after he made that sword for me and pledged his allegiance. And he even has Shadow looking like, I mean, Nasty said himself, like, Mr. Wednesday is like the biggest liar of them all. But I figured as much. He was going, at the very least, he spread it to a star. Maybe like through the grapevine hadn't reached her yet that it was actually him who did it. But it's like, I guess, you know, and I mean, it seems like Nasty's obviously on Wednesday's side, making him in Shadow suits and everything. But it's like, I would assume Wednesday confided that in him. So I guess either he's on his side or just like, I don't know, because I was about to say maybe he's in the middle, but I don't think Wednesday's letting anyone stay in the middle. Either you're with the new gods or you're with the old gods, the forgotten gods. You have to pick a side. There's no playing the middle ground in this situation. So, but we learned so much in this episode. Okay, I mean, well, like I said, we got introduced to Astara. I need to learn that actress's name. I see her in stuff all the time. I think she's like a stage actress. If I remember correctly, she's known for like she was a big part of like the Wicked like Broadway productions and stuff like that. Like she was like one of the main cast, you know. I think so. I could be remembering wrong, but I think so. But I really like this whole situation and like how Wednesday tries to like play her not only with the Vulcan story, but also the fact of the matter is like, oh, this is supposed to be your day because you are Easter. This is supposed to be your day. But what do people do? Who do they pray for? They pray for Jesus. This is your day. Like you put in all the hard work and he gets the praise. And interesting enough, one of the Jesus is played by Jeremy because he popped up in like last week's episode of Twin Peaks. Interesting enough, I say Davis last time, but I think it might be Davies. Either way, he's one of the Jesus, and he feels like, oh man, he almost like it was like it wounded his pride. He's like, oh man, I didn't even think about that. Like, oh, I'm almost like, oh, I'm such an asshole for doing that, and I love that. And she had to tell Wednesday, he's like, why are you coming here messing everything up? This is his day, my day, our day, damn it. But like from Wednesday, it's all about, you know, trying to sweet talk her. I'm like, no, this is about you. The fact of the matter is we can go about this away, you know, get those prayers back because people forgot about you, but they don't need to forget about you. But she was like at one point, like, well, won't they be praying to him? And then Shadow kind of adds it and it's like, well, no, because he's not, you know, the goddess of spring. Well, you could tell like from the very beginning, it's like, she likes Shadow. Like she's like, ooh, just really kind of dug him right from the very beginning. I mean, because a big part of this episode, I mean, it obviously pays off. Its effect is, it is all about Shadow's belief. Like, finally, Shadow believes. Like, because you know he's talking to Jesus and everything, which you have Jesus like kind of cross-legged on the water. Like, obviously, he dips his cup in and drops it. I assume it's like he was turning water into wine and dropped it, and it's just like, oh crap. That sucks. I can, you know, I guess like the whole situation bothered him enough that he's like, oh yeah, kind of getting, you know, depressed and everything. Which we kind of dive a little more continuously on the whole, like, oh yeah, there's multiple Jesuses out there. It's like, oh, Jesus kind of represents whatever face you see when you close your eyes and pray like that. So to me, that's why I was like, so are there actually multiple Jesuses, or is it just one Jesus that people see very different ways, but you do have all those Jesuses walking around? Are they kind of like reflections of the same person? Like they're all the same person, but it's like the different. That's what I was trying to wondering and trying to get at. Either way. It's all about, like, Shadow's like, I don't know what I believe. I don't know if I know how to believe. And it's like, Jesus is like, well, no matter whether or not you believe or not, there's a road before you that your senses will tell you, like, this is the path you need to go down. And you have to go down that path. Like, you have to walk it to the very end, no matter where, you know, whatever that path may be. So, I mean, that obviously plays a role in this episode because it's like, the ultimate confrontation is like the new gods show up and everything. It's like, yo, it's time. Wednesday, you and Astara don't be joining up with Wednesday. When it's all said and done, like, hey, this is the new deal. You either get with it or you're dead meat. Like, you guys are like, your way of thinking, Wednesday's way of thinking, who Wednesday is an example. Is like, you're old school, you're ancient, your way of doing things doesn't work anymore. So it's like, and Mr. World kind of says it himself, like, hey, either we go to war, if we go to war, you will lose. We outmatch you in power and everything. And he's like, and even if you don't go to war, we'll also win. It's like a win-win situation for us. No matter what you do, we win. Either you submit and win, and lose, but still you'll be alive, or you can try and fight us and die. Because it's like basically like, yo, this war will be the end of you. So then on top of that, obviously Laura and Mad show up. They end up talking to Astara because she's the one that, you know, he was talking about could help bring Laura back to life. And obviously he skates around the details of why. As the audience, we know, like, Laura still doesn't know the reasons behind, like, hey, like, why do you care? Why do you even give a crap? Because obviously, like, to find out how she had to look into Laura and find out how she died, and she ends up seeing Mads, and then like she kind of looks at him and he kind of looks away, kind of like shameful because he felt bad about it. If he didn't feel bad about it, he wouldn't have put the coin back in her like he did last episode, kind of bringing her back from the dead. But what's really interesting in the fact is she can't do anything for Laura because it's like, oh yeah, you weren't just killed anyway, you were killed by a god. It's like, wait, what does that mean? It's like, I can't mess with that. Like, basically being killed with a god is like some cosmic level shit that can't be messed with. It's like I guess like how I'm interpreting it is like, yo, it's a huge scar that will never heal. It's like, you can't, like, you can try, but it's like, I mean, might not even be possible to even try. I don't even think there might be other ways. I feel like they were talking about there might be other ways, but like I don't know if she was saying like after finding out that she was killed by a god that there were ways about going through with that. Like I don't think anything can help at this point, so she might be stuck being dead. Maybe there is another way. But she ends up confronting Mads, ends up grabbing him by the nut and lifting him up in the air. And that's gotta suck. Big time, dude. And he's like, yes, I killed you. She's like, no. Which I was like, oh, Mads, obviously I knew Mr. Wednesday was behind it and everything. I was like, oh, obviously he hired Mads to do it. It's like, no, Mads didn't actually do it. Mad actually was just there to confirm the kill. Like, it was Wednesday who actually killed her. It's like, tell me who killed me. It's like, you already know. She's like, I want to hear you say it. It's like, Wednesday did it. And just like I thought, everything that's happened, them getting busted, Shadow going to jail, everything has been for the purpose of getting Shadow by himself. Dude, you devious son of a gun, Wednesday. Because basically he needed Shadow to be alone, to have nothing. Feel like he had nothing left. That's why he kept the distance between him and Laura like that. Because, like, ultimately I look at it as, like, he needed shit. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like, Shadow isn't important. He's just the guy. Almost like anybody could have been the guy, but Shadow had to be the guy. I interpret that as, like, and now I'm sitting here thinking about it. To me, I'm like, it's because Shadow didn't believe. Wednesday needed he needed to charge up like nobody's business. And the best thing to do that is get someone, a non-believer, someone who really doubts. As we can see, Shadow doubts even believing that he can believe. To get someone like him to believe, it's the start of everything. He's like the ultimate weapon in that sense. I thought this is all about making Shadow a god, but so maybe Shadow doesn't even have any powers. Maybe later on we'll find out he actually does. I don't know. There's got to be definitely something to Shadow for things to kind of play out the way they have around. Who knows? This might be a situation where Shadow's literally the only normal person, because you got leprechauns, you got gods, you got his zombie wife. He might just be the only normal person mixed up in all this. Because I don't know, maybe that was like the whole like weather shit, like situation. That might not even been him. That might have been Wednesday doing that to make him like, taking the steps to make him believe. Because it's like slowly but surely he's like, I need him to believe. I need to ease him into this whole situation. So like, to me, that's kind of like the grand scheme of it all. And Wednesday kind of does it, though. He's like, oh yeah, like all these next Death Star, they're going to be tribute to you. And it's like, wait, what? And then he strikes down the no faces, which I appreciate. I like how they like multiply. They kind of like shake a little bit, like they did a kind of like routine dance thing, and then like split and multiply like that. But he struck them down with lightning. I get, because from the very beginning we know that he sent like sparks into the air. So I guess this entire time he's been biding his time, and obviously up there in the air, like they've been like that energy's been charging up, waiting for a moment to strike. His big declaration of war. I mean, really, that was kind of like the opening act to what Astara did. Basically going all Mother Gaia. I don't think she is Gaia, but like I think it's probably like essentially kind of that. She's Mother Earth essentially. And it's like, because Wednesday's plan is like, yo, when you're done with all of this, like how we get them to believe again, how they get them to believe in you, because it's like, oh, I want you to be my queen. It's the fact is that she brings in a spring, so it's like you take it from them. The fact of the matter is you starve them out, and then they find out about you, and then they'll believe in you again for you to restore, like, spring. And she ends up lifting up her arms, and everything decays, like all the plant life and everything. She took it away. Now, whether that was across the entire earth or just America, I don't know, because that would beg the question, like, obviously we see the new gods there in front of them, like, okay, we see you've made your declaration of war, it's noted, there will be no survival now. You declare war, then you'll get the war that you've always wanted. Know that you will die in all of this. So obviously, like, gloves are off. Everyone reveals himself, like, like Odin does his thing and Asara does her thing. So I mean, and going back to the whole Laura situation, the way Mad says it, it's like, no, you weren't murdered, you were sacrificed. So it's like, I mean, in what way does that mean? Like, how did she play out as a sacrifice? Did she like give him the boost he needed? Like, oh, I sacrificed a lot. I mean, because it's like, because Mad is like, yo, like you were just caught in the middle of a cosmic game. It's like, what do gods do? They like to fuck with people. They like to fuck with everyone. You just happen to be the target of it. You're not special in that sense. You're just like it could happen to anyone. Just happen to be you. So it's like, it's not even like Shadow is necessarily special or important, but it is, he was someone that Wednesday needed. Like I said, I feel like he's special in the sense of like, he was so, didn't know what to believe. He was open to the possibilities, possible, like the potential of him being a strong believer. Like, he had such a like disbelief that the moment you turn that belief, it will be the greatest strength. It will be one of the strongest beliefs that Oda could ever feel. So I think, like, I think everyone kind of underestimated just how important Shadow was to this whole situation. At least that's how, I feel about it and everything. I mean, like I said, this was a great season finale. Like, obviously, like this entire season has heavily been built up. It's all been up to like, hey, leading up to this point of like, hey, like, believe, Shadow, believe. And it's like trying to, like, the new gods are trying to be like, hey, we can work this out and everything. Let's avoid a war because it's going to get super bloody. And the only ones that are going to get bloody are you. But, oh, never mind. You want the war? Fine. So just a fantastic end of this like season. I'm not sure if this is getting renewed for a second season. I really hope so because I really like this. Because I guarantee you season 2 is going to be definitely even crazier considering the fact it's this all-out war now that Wednesday's made his declaration. But at the very end, Laura shows up again and she's like, I got to talk to my husband, which is like, and you see kind of that look on like Wednesday's face. So I'm very interested to see where that goes down, especially when Shadow finds out, oh yeah, so Wednesday murdered me. This is all, wait, what? Yeah, I might have cheated on you and everything, but Wednesday murdered me. He sent you he basically played it out so that you would go to jail and stuff like that. So what will that do for Shadow's belief? Will Wednesday get in the way or not? Will Astara kind of find out the truth about the whole Vulcan situation? Like I said, I'm wondering, like, is that something that's going through the grapevine that she just hasn't heard yet? Or has, like, Wednesday kept tight-lip about that? Because eventually the new gods will say, like, no, we didn't kill Vulcan. Which, I guess, it's like, oh, who will you believe? Me? The victim in this whole situation? That being Wednesday, in his eyes. And it's like, or these guys who are trying to bully their way, trying to run us and tell us how we should operate that. Like I said, it's so fascinating because it's like, gods battling out in a very different manner. It's all for the power of belief. Like, people don't believe in us anymore. How are we going to go about doing that? Because obviously Wednesday kind of wants to go to O route of like, hey, we've done things like this way for so long. It's like, hey, let's get back. I'm gonna get back on top. And essentially the new gods are like, no, this is a business now. Like, handle it like a business and exchanges and stuff like that. It's very fascinating when you actually break it down like that. So I'm really hoping that this gets renewed for a second season because I'd love to see where these storylines take us in the second season, like what this means going forward for Shadow and Laura and Mad. I mean, Mad wanted this war simply for the fact that it would give him a place to die. Will he actually ever tell Laura about their connection and everything? Like, I don't know. And once again, does Mad actually know about those connections? Like, with Essie and everything, or is everything he did simply because of the fact is that the gods messed with her and he felt bad? Like, I feel like it's got to be a combination of the two. Maybe it is just the whole like Wednesday sacrificing her thing. Maybe there is the Essie thing. Just gonna have to wait and really find out because really Matt isn't one to really kind of let things slip, much like Wednesday this entire season didn't let a thing slip. So, and like I brought up earlier, like at the beginning, like what part is Billiquist going to play in all of this situation too? Like, obviously, she's supposed to point her gun towards Wednesday, or maybe she's supposed to point it towards Shadow. I guess we'll just kind of have to wait and find out. I guess unless you've read the books, then you might already know the answer to that. But if you've read the books, don't say anything. Really, like, you might be able to hint towards stuff as long as it, like, if you have read the books, I do highly recommend don't spoil it, because I'd like to go into this not know. Like I said, once again, don't know if it's getting renewed for a second season. I think it will. I don't know, like, ratings wise, like, viewership and stuff like that, because those numbers matter and stuff like that. But I think, review wise, I think it does pretty well. I mean, I've never really read any reviews, but any numbers I've seen associated with the show seem positive enough. I mean, depending on where you look, I assume. So the numbers seem positive. So I'm hoping for the best. So, if there is in fact a season 2, please don't say anything if you've read the books, because I don't want to be spoiled on it. I want to go into the second season being like, but much like the first season, not knowing anything and kind of picking things up and, making my guesses like I pretty much do about every show I do, but especially this one because I'm going in with no prior knowledge to pull from, so. And now moving on to this week's episode of Twin Peaks, a very, very good episode. It's kind of interesting to me because I feel like not really like the most plot heavy episode. That's kind of where my mind initially goes, but it's like, I think the pacing of this episode was a lot faster because things were kind of boom, boom, boom. And I feel like they weren't necessarily like that because a lot of episodes have been mainly focusing on Dougie's life, but even that was kind of like a side story this episode. So, I mean, I really appreciate that. It's just like I've brought up before, like this episodes have been slow before, but it seemed like this episode was faster, but maybe that's just my imagination. One big thing is obviously we got Diane popping up again, and we get to know her more. And I really like Diane. I love the fact is it's kind of in the sense of like she's very foul mouthed, and I really like that because she's just like because she's not the image of the person you thought you'd run into. It's like, oh yeah, the person Cooper is always sending messages to and everything. It's like, oh yeah, Diane. It's like you wouldn't expect her to have that personality, but it's just like her favorite word this episode was like, fuck you. It's like, oh, okay, fuck you, Gordon. Fuck you, Albert. Oh, what's your name again? It's Tammy. Fuck you, Tammy. It's like, I love her because the fact of the matter is it makes you wonder, was Diane's character always like this? Because I don't know if she's popped up in any outside canon outside of the shows and whatnot, or is this like her like absolute first introduction as like you get to hear her and get to know her? I mean, maybe that's the reason why she was written that way, because it's like, oh, she's always been that silent person. It's like, oh, when Diane shows up, we're gonna make sure she shows up. I really appreciated it. But obviously she shows up and is able to tell immediately that the dude in there is not Dale Cooper. It's like, you remember, when was the last time we met? And he was like, oh, at your place. And she's like, do you remember that night? And she say, I don't know how to really explain it, but something in the heart. There was something there, or like the fact is the lack of something there in the heart tells me this isn't Dale Cooper. Even just isn't just time and everything, which Gordon's like, hey, you said that's not Cooper. I believe you that it's not Cooper. Which is like, it brings up the question of like, what went down that night? Because obviously the fact is that she's referencing it means, but the thing is like, why is it that Clone Cooper, I mean, because Clone Cooper never really outright said like, well, he did, he was kind of like acknowledging the fact that he remembered that night. But it's like, because to me this entire time it seems like, Doppelganger Cooper has been faking it. He's just, once, like I said it before, as trying to suss out how to respond, how to be more natural, how to be more Cooper-like, especially with the way he was talking to Gordon. But it wasn't authentic. He can't, I guess things have gotten complicated. He's, sick and like dying from being, consider the whole Black Law situation between him and Cooper, like they're both dying, and like one of them will have to die. It's kind of the price to pay for everything that's going down. So maybe for him, it's like, it's making it harder to concentrate or something, whatever the case may be. But she immediately knew, which does, once again, brings up the question, like, what went down between her and Cooper, her and the real Cooper? I mean, because part of me was like, well, does that mean it might have been the other Cooper instead of the real Cooper? Because the thing is, like, why she distanced herself? Because the moment, like, she's like, oh, yeah, I know you're here about Cooper. Fuck you, Albert, and send him on his way immediately. So it's like, what went down that night that makes her distance herself from Coop? Like, I mean, and where does that fall in the timeline? Is this before he went to Twin Peaks? Because, like to my knowledge, because I've only saw Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me one time, so I didn't rewatch it before this. I rewatched the series, but not the movie, mainly because I felt like, well, most of that's about Laura. So, but nevertheless, I do remember there being a deleted scene where Cooper is talking to Diane. So is it like before he went off to Twin Peaks? Because he never had any time to go back to Twin Peaks. I mean, going back to like see Diane or whatever, like during this whole thing. Now, unless it was at the tail end of that 25 years and it was actually Doppelganger, which, but I don't know. I feel like it had to be the real Cooper, but then again, it was like maybe it was Doppelganger Cooper. Either way, but it seems like it was something bad. It may not have been something good. The fact that she's even tell Gordon like, "Yo, we'll talk about it sometime," but for right now, it's like no. So it's like. I mean, immediately my mind kind of thinks the worst of it. But then again, there's the other side of me that's like, well, what if something happened between, like, obviously she knows him the best. Maybe something happened between them in like I'll blatantly say it, like in a consenting way. And maybe he broke her heart in a sense, and why she is kind of keep distancing herself from this whole Cooper thing. The reason why she didn't want to get involved in everything. And another thing kind of came up too. I was wondering if this is what it was, because obviously Tammy was examining the fingerprint, and then like Albert kind of points out, I was like, oh yeah, this looks like a mirror image of that. So I was like, oh, it's supposed to represent the whole doppelganger thing. That's why I was thinking, like, that's what I originally thought was going to happen. Like, oh, the fingerprints are going to be exact, like, mirror images, but it's like, no, they're exact except for certain prints where it's like, oh, they couldn't exactly get them to 100% match up to Cooper's because they were a little off, so they reflected them and made it fit being Cooper. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I think this still applies to like, oh, because he is like a mirror image to Cooper, like he's the opposite of him and everything. And then Gordon was doing that whole thing about, oh, this is the spiritual finger. It's like, wait, what does that mean? And he was talking about the fact is like counting on her fingers, like all the words that Cooper had said when they met and everything. What does that mean? What is that all about? Like, what do they plan on doing now that they're like, oh, yeah, that's not Cooper. So what do you plan on doing there? I mean, obviously can't do nothing about it necessarily now that Cooper ended up getting out because he ended up blackmailing the warden and everything. I think he's probably running out of time considering the whole circumstances, so he needed to hurry up and make a move and get out. But I mean, maybe seeing Diane and seeing her react that way, he figures that she knew something was up and that basically they wouldn't accept him being, because if they could believe that he's really Cooper, then, considering their past and everything, him being a former FBI agent, and if they'd be more willing to help him, at least that's where my mind is thinking, like he might have thought. But he ended up getting out of prison with Ray. He ended up getting a car, a gun and everything. So what he's exactly up to, I don't know. Maybe he knows now that Dale's here, so he's going to try and track him down and kill him. It's like, one of us is going to die. You're going to die. I'm not going back to the Black Lodge. I'm staying here. Which that might not even be a thing anymore. It's like, it might not even be a situation of like, oh, one of you can go back to the Black Lodge. It's like, no, it's probably too late now because of the whole imbalance thing. Now, the fact is there are two Coopers in this world. There's no, like, everything's kind of got thrown off balance. So one of you will have to die to restore balance. So. And speaking of Cooper, I love, obviously, like, Dougie's whole situation. Obviously, the guy that Dougie's kind of Cooper's reporting on, it's, I think the actor's name is Tom Sizemore. His character is, like, kind of asked, oh, so what's up with those files? Oh, you went in the boss's room for a while. Oh, what did you guys talk about? But then the police show up and everything. And it's that actor, and I hate myself for not remembering his name, the main cop that was talking. Obviously you see him pop up more often than not in comedies and stuff like that, and I feel like such a douchebag because I see him so often. You'd think by now I would have learned his name. But once again, Dougie's wife to the rescue, just like, I love her just being like so snappy and just like so sassy and stuff. It's like, his car's been missing. If we knew where the car was, would we really say that it's missing? It's just like, wow. I love that about her. Like, she showed it even more last episode and like amped it up this episode too. It's like, oh my God, you knew the entire time something was wrong with the car, like that the car blew up and whatnot. Why didn't you just tell us that from the very beginning? It's just a very sweet and protecting wife and everything. I love that. She's very bossy yet sweet and caring in her own way. Also, the assassin dude showed up, but like he just pulled out the gun. Immediately in my brain, I was like, oh my God, like Dougie's wife is about to die. It's like, nope, Cooper pushes her out of the way, goes over, grabs the gun, and tackles it with the dude. And you even see her at one point, his wife, kind of going behind the dude and choking him a little bit. But then you have like, Cooper fends him off and like karate chops him in the throat, but he ends up getting away. And I love that, like, one of the a lady later on is like talking to news about it. It's like, oh yeah, man, that guy, he wasn't a victim. It's like, oh, he was just like karate chopped the dude in the neck. It was like, it was so fast. It's like he was like a blur. I was like, dude, that pieces of Cooper slowly but surely coming back. Once again, he saw like the police officers, like, oh, officers, and it's kind of like it's jogging his head. Obviously this is a moment of something jogging his head. The whole thing is like, yo, you need to wake up, Coop, you need to wake up. So it was overall just very interesting developments on that part. Like, I'm curious to see how the whole storyline about Dougie's life, like, the fact of the matter is Tom Sizemore's character is kind of up to some shady crap and whatnot, like what that means, whether that would really turn into anything. I mean, it seems like he is nervous because, oh, there's cops here? Well, I just kind of leave you to it, Dougie, and kind of got out of the room as fast as he could. So probably assuming that maybe it's connected to him and whatnot, so. This episode, too, was the letters that Hulk got last episode. He ends up, showing them to Frank and everything. Turns out they're from Laura, like, in particular her diary, specifically the one that Harold had, which apparently some pages were missing, which I think Harold tore some out before he killed himself, but I don't remember there being, I thought like all of them were there. I don't really remember. Maybe they did bring up the fact that there were some pages missing. I don't remember. But nevertheless, it's like they've been here for like the past 25 years. And the fact of the matter is they say some very interesting things. It was a message Laura got in her dream. It's like, hi, my name is Annie. Tell them that the person that's in the Black Lodge is the good Cooper. And it's like, wait, what? Because as we know, like, Laura had the whole dream about Cooper and everything, that he'd be the one to solve her murder and everything, that he'd be the one that kind of have to save the day in this whole situation. So we see even more so that he is connected to this deeply. I mean, that, it goes even deeper. God, I don't even know what the hell I'm saying. What? I could cut that out, but I'm just going to leave it in. Nevertheless, I mean, kind of puts things in perspective because it's like, how much did Laura freaking know? She knew so much before she died. She knew she was going to die and everything. Because obviously one of the pages is like, oh yeah, like, I know it's not Bob. I know who it is. And Hulk is like, oh yeah, it has to be her figuring out that it was Leland. And maybe Leland put those pages there. I mean, he was in and out of the police station on multiple occasions. We do know that he was, possessed by Bob and was the killer. So at any point in time, he could have hid those just for the sake of like, hey, I wanted to make sure that, maybe you guys were closing in on me, considering the whole fact of him killing Jacques, who pops up near the end of the episode, which I don't think that's Jacques' character, but I'm sure that looks like it's the actor who plays Jacques. I assuming he's kind of like, he's like, oh, the Roadhouse is coming. This whole situation's been run by Renault's for like 50 years. This has been our business. So I'm guessing he's maybe another brother. To my knowledge, there's only the three, but there was the one that Leo killed, there was the one that Leland Jacques killed, and then there was Jean Renault, like, who got killed in the whole situation of trying to get revenge on Coop. So either he's another brother that we didn't know about, or he is a cousin or something. He's a Renault nonetheless. The fact is, the way he was talking and everything, it sounds like One-Eye Jacks might still be open, which is kind of interesting that would kind of still be open. That would be a thing, but I guess they, you reopened it and everything. Once again, it's kind of what I brought up last episode. It's like, oh, there's drugs in Twin Peaks again. I was like, oh, it must be connected to the whole Renault brothers, like, pipeline and stuff, which it seems like the Renaults are still around, so it seems like that's a strong possibility. I mean, even more so now, so. But, like, obviously you have Hulk and Frank talking it out, and it's like, oh, okay, so if the Cooper we saw wasn't the good Cooper, because the good Cooper is still in the Black Lodge, who or what came out with Annie? Frank wanted to talk to Harry about it, but Harry's sick and everything, and he didn't want to worry him, which is like, makes you wonder what would Harry have thought. I did appreciate him talking to Doc Hayward this episode. Makes you wonder where Donna is. But ended up bringing a computer from the desk, which is pretty badass, and ended up talking to him. It's like, yeah, he examined Cooper right after like the whole situation happened. Ended up taking him to the hospital. But Cooper just tried to sneak out and everything. And when he went to go see Cooper's in the intensive care, and it's like, oh, what could he have been doing there? It's like, oh, might have been. It's like Doc was like, I assumed he was visiting Audrey Horne because after that whole bank situation, we found out she was in a coma. Was a coma. Don't know where that status is. Maybe it was mentioned and I didn't catch it, but it's like definitely caught the fact that yep, she was in a coma at that time. So, I mean, because it's a situation that's kind of hard to judge because of the way Ben's acting, you really wouldn't be able to tell whether or not, I mean, it's like, it's been 20 some years, so maybe like her condition hasn't changed. Maybe she stayed in a coma this entire time. Maybe it's a situation of like, oh, she is better. We just haven't gotten around to see. I remember reading stuff. Was it last week's episode? Like, yeah, people are like, I was reading, like, randomly skimming stuff, looking up for pictures for thumbnails and stuff like that. And I randomly was, because obviously, like, how I go about searching for thumbnails and stuff like that. I ended up reading some titles and stuff like that to articles and stuff. It's like people are pissed that Audrey still hasn't popped up because she's still one of those characters. Like, what the hell happened to her after the bank explosion? We need to know, damn it. So maybe that might be leading them being like, oh yeah, that storyline's coming up soon enough. Don't you worry. It's kind of something interesting that kind of give him credit for. It's Pat from the Super Best Friends kind of comment on the fact that it's like yeah, I'm sure he's loving this because it's so slow and everything, and it's pissing so many people off. People are so pissed at the pacing of the show and everything, and he loves it for that reason and everything. So interesting reason why to love something, but still, nevertheless. I also appreciate Jerry popping up this episode, being like, "My car's been stolen." It's like, your car's been stolen. He's like, "Yeah, you always say that." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Whoa, is this some kind of like futuristic stuff of like, oh, you had some kind of dream or premonition, like, Mrs. Palmer or whatever?" But it's like, Ben, I think I'm high right now, and it's just like, "Oh, Jerry," and it's like, I don't know where I am. It hangs up, and I'm pretty sure that was him at the end of the episode, like at the restaurant, being like, "Is Ben here? Does anyone know where Ben is?" And immediately left out. It's like, God, Jerry, like maybe like whatever the hell you're smoking, maybe it doesn't do right by your age. Like, dude, that's not unless there's something else to that. So, and also there's the whole situation of Andy investigating the hit and run situation from last episode. Dude that was driving it, nowhere to be found, but there's another dude who owns the truck, and told him, was like, "Yo, meet me at this place," because the dude's like, "I just need you to get out of here now." Obviously, like, whoever, the people he's in bed with and everything probably were going to be around soon enough. So it seems like he never showed up, and his place, it seemed like the door was open. So I'm assuming either he ran, but most likely in my head I'm thinking like, nah, he's probably dead. They probably found out, it's like, oh, the cops are looking into this. Yeah, you have to go. We need to tie up loose ends, either just because it's like, oh, they saw Andy's car nearby, or they know what the truck was involved with. So, but then again, it's like, well, won't that fall back on the kid? Or maybe it fall back, well, not the kid, but the dude, like the weirdo douchebag last episode who committed the hit and run. So maybe it falls back on him and that dude. Like I said, that was just a little small part of the episode. So whether anything comes about it, I don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see on that department too. Oh, and yes, like we get Lieutenant Knox investigating the whole body situation, because like, oh, where's the head and everything? It's like, okay, like things aren't matching up. It's like, is this Briggs' body? It's like the fingerprints came back as his, but you said that the body, but the Emmy's like, yo, the body's like that of like a 40-year-old. It's like, wait, that can't be possible. It's like, oh yeah, and the body was killed a couple days ago. It's like, wait, she ends up reporting it to Ernie Hudson's character, Colonel Davis, and he's like, yo, wait, no, that doesn't fit. You're right, something's weird here, because if Major Briggs was killed most recently, he would have been in his 70s. But the fact of the matter is, his body's of that of a 40-year-old, which we know as the audience, it knows that that's the real Dougie's body. But then why are the fingerprints coming back as Briggs? Colonel Briggs. Like I said, is this like some kind of big sign or whatever? Like, I don't know. Because once again, it's like, why does she recognize Cooper as Dougie, even though like her husband Dougie isn't the real Dougie? And that the real Dougie was killed a couple days ago, or did a real Dougie always look like Cooper, or is it like a situation of like everyone's mind's been messed with or something? I don't know. Like what that all means. Still confused on that part. But then it's like, okay, so what's going on here? Why are the prints coming back Briggs, even though we know that's Dougie's body? I mean, they don't know at this point in time, but we know. So it's like, what is that all about? Like, that has to be a clue now, whether that's a clue from the Black Lot trying to get things rolling, like, oh yeah, put us all in the right direction, situation, I don't know. Or maybe it's something that Doppelganger Coop set up. I mean, considering the fact that the body might be his handiwork, but it's like, why kill her and Ruth? Like, because that's still not a situation we understand. Like, what's up with Ruth's murder and situation? What about Matthew Lillard's character in that whole situation of like, oh yeah, he was framed for Ruth's murder or whatever because his prints were there. Because we still haven't gone back to his situation in this, but then his wife got killed by Doppelganger Coop, and it's like, okay, like, side note, is that what that whole like strawberry situation with the watermelons was that related to that? I didn't catch the names that he was bringing up, but I don't. Is that connected to that? Or like, because I don't, or is that like me just adding like slapping that together when those are two unrelated things? I don't know. I feel like he kept mentioning a name, but I didn't catch the name, so I don't know what I think Matthew Lillard's character's name was Bill. So is it connected to Bill and his wife's situation? Considering the fact is that like, he knows about Warden Murray, like, Doppelganger Coop knows all about, like, oh yeah, I know about Strawberry, so it's like your mistress and everything, and the fact is that she's dead to her. I don't know. Because it seemed like they were set, like, I don't know. I'm not going to hazard a guess anymore. I'm just going to make things worse and so much more confusing. He's about to say like, oh, I have to make one more call. We do see him pick up the phone and call someone else. Immediately my mind goes, is he calling Bobby or Bobby's mom? I mean, I don't know if Bobby's mom is still alive or not, but might be calling them to kind of get some info because like I could be remembering this wrong, but didn't they mention earlier that earlier, few episodes back or whatever, when Bobby popped up, but like Briggs died in a fire anyway, so there should only be ashes left anyway. Like, I mean, to be fair, I mean, because the weird thing is like Briggs has disappeared before and reappeared. Obviously, like he came back with that whole pilot situation. Still don't know what, we never found out what the hell that was about when he disappeared back in season 2 and just popped up again. It's like, oh yeah, just randomly popped up and he was wearing a pilot's outfit. He was going for like 2 days or something like that. Have no bloody idea. Like, and also there's like this, I don't know what it is, like a small storyline of like, oh yeah, there's some humming going on at Great Northern, and it's like, okay, what's that about? And then Ben also got Cooper's keys. It's like, oh yeah, oh man, we haven't used keys in such a long, like 20 odd years. Like we're all using key cards now. It's like 315. I think it was 315. Whatever the case, it's like, all right, this is Agent Cooper's room, and like the lady that I guess she's their assistant or secretary is like, oh, who's Agent Cooper? Oh yeah, he was an agent that came here that got shot. He actually got shot in that room. Yeah, he was investigating Laura Palmer's murder. He's like, who's Laura Palmer? He's like, oh, that's a long story. It's like, like I figured that was be going back to Twin Peaks, but I figured that was the thing that Hulk was supposed to be looking for. Turns out that's not the case. Like I said, it seems like things are steadily going that route because the keys got sent back and everything. Plus, these pages from Laura's diary were found and everything. Which I don't remember if I brought this up earlier when I was mentioning that, but I do know that her diaries are like at least one. I don't know if it includes all of them, but I do know that her diaries are canonically, like they were written as a book or something like that. I think it's something I looked up like a year or two ago, and I don't really remember it that well, but I remember reading somewhere it's like, oh yeah, like you can get the books of Laura Palmer's diary, like they were legitimately novels. So it's like, well, novel, because I think they might have been more than one, considering the fact that she had more than one diary, but whatever the case may be. Like I said, it seems like the pieces are coming together to eventually lead them to like, oh, tracking down Cooper and Cooper slowly but surely awakening and stuff like that. So, like I said, a very good episode. Things are still very confusing, but it's still a very interesting episode that gave you a little more insight into things slowly but surely. You know, pieces coming together. Still lost, but, you know, working towards figuring that puzzle out and seeing the big picture in all of this. Very, very, very excited to see what goes on in the next episode, what new revelations will come across, and how this story will evolve, and what, you know, things will coincide and clash. That's an interesting way to phrase that, I know, but nevertheless. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.